Hey, Miles, thanks for coming back. Real quick, I almost forgot. I have to announce a coupon. I just had it written down because I don't, the advertisements are not in the video and all that. So sometimes I forget. I'm terrible at marketing. Podcast 10 people. This is a coupon for people who are listening to the podcast. Podcast 10, all lowercase, number 10, no spaces, no goofiness. That's for you. Go to thesimplelifenow.com. You'll get 10% off your entire order and free shipping. I just did one for people on the newsletter. So I figured I'll give one to the people on the podcast. But here's the good news. If you sign up for both, you get 2 coupons. You get to use them twice. So why not sign up for the newsletter, people? Go to thesimplelifenow.com. Go to the Simple Life Insider Circle or the pop-up. Sign up. You get coupons and cool stuff. I don't send you spam or anything stupid. It's not on a schedule. I send it when I want to. I'll be sending out a project I just did. Well, you won't get because this is forward, but I would have sent a project out. You would have gotten a newsletter of something I built that I utilize, and it's otherwise you won't know. So there. But Miles, sorry about that. Me and you had lunch recently, and you were telling me about how you were on your podcast, the Unconstrained podcast, right? It's not Be Unconstrained. It's the Unconstrained.
Yeah, beunconstrained.com is the website, but you're right, it's the Unconstrained podcast.
Yes. So you were telling me you were talking about this concept and discussing how to live backwards to live forward. And you had me enthralled. You started explaining it to me and I said, stop, we got to talk about it on the podcast. Don't give it all away right now. So go into that and explain what you mean by that.
All right. Well, I think human beings have a hard time talking about uncomfortable things. And so we tend to avoid it. It's normal. And if you've lived in a world where, particularly the same business, for example, you can't really plan on things long term because the future is always unknown. And so anybody would tell you, well, I don't know if I want to invest in that thing because it won't pay out for 10 or 20 years. And the answer is, I don't know what the world's going to look like in 10 or 20 years, right? I hear that a lot. That's a pretty common thread. But the problem is, I think that what we do realize is that we are biological organisms that have a predictable life expectancy. And although that might vary, maybe plus or minus 20% for people, depending upon whether you die young or you die old, the reality is that is something you can, say, okay, I know I'm going to have mortality. I'm going to die. So what that did for me was I sort of looked at it because my standing on this was that when I was 22, I had to bury my father. He died at the age of 67. And he did not have, he had the typical company man lifestyle where he gave his entire life to his company. And then 2 years after he got the opportunity, the gold watch and the retirement, he died. He didn't stay around very long. And at the age of 22, that's kind of a very formational event in one's life because you look at it and go, there but for the grace of God go I don't want to end up like that. And I became a little bit kind of fixated because I realized, people in their jobs, they have money put in their 401k or they invest in an IRA or they're told by their government to put money aside and, you'll retire at 65. You'll do these what I call social mantra events. But nobody ever looked at them in context with what the actual endpoint was. It was a difficult conversation. But if you're somebody who has ever had to put a parent into a nursing home or you've ever had to bury a parent, you start coming to grips with the fact that this is real, this is normal, and this is predictable and is inevitable. Nobody is immortal. And whereas we make every damn excuse out there for things in the future that we think we can't control, this is one thing we can. And the quality of your life, the quality of your days goes to one of the tenets of your philosophy, one of the legs on your stool, health, right? Yeah. You want to keep your health as optimal as you possibly can because you want a quality of life. But regardless of whether you're, an athletic level of fitness and, your organic food and all of those things, you still will die because your body has natural entropy. Everything in the world eventually turns to dust. I believe that if you want to look at the end point in life and work backwards, there's a lot of wisdom in that. And what triggered this for me was a recent study I had looking at people in the retirement investment community, the personal financial retirement guys, the guys that most people in their 50s go to with a boatload of money in their 401k or some real estate or whatever they've done saving up. Hopefully they've done something in their lives that they've amassed some sort of wealth, and they go to these schmucks and they go, well, where should I invest my money? And they talk about bonds and they talk about this and that, but nobody in that field is retired. They're all still working. That's why they're charging them one way or another for the investment advice. So they have no standing to give you that advice. And nobody ever wants to tell you about how dire and how dark and how depressing that last quarter of your life is. So I thought, maybe look at this in reverse. Look at the worst possible scenario and work back. So what is it? Well, this is where I started the whole process of looking at death. And I look at death, and if you've ever had to bury somebody, the charlatans in the funeral director industry and what they charge you for a freaking coffin that's going to get burnt in a crematorium or eaten away by worms or whatever.
Well, a business that has a 100% success rate, because your business, everyone will die eventually.
Exactly.
Pretty basic, right? What a business model. I'm going to base a business off you dying, which I know is going to happen. I 100% know you will die.
Exactly. And then you've got the bankers that sit back there trying to sell you, quote, insurance products for your inevitable funeral. It's like, no, it's the whole thing is just a setup. But know that you cannot refuse it, because when it comes upon you, you're at your weakest. You're at your most emotionally vulnerable place when you've a loved one, a spouse, a family member, whatever it is, has passed. You can't avoid it. So you're stuck with that. So I said, well, that's the worst possible case. But look, let's go back a couple of years into that, that hospice period, that nursing home hospice period. And I know people don't want to talk about this, and you're probably going to hate me telling your audience about the depressing part of life, right?
Well, I'll be honest, Miles, I actually did investigations in nursing homes for a while. I'll tell you what, you know what it taught me? Make sure you never end up in a nursing home. That's what it taught me. Unless you're rich and you can afford the nice one where they take care of you. And even those, they'll rob you, beat you when no one's looking. Nursing homes are horrific places. Right. So trust me.
My experience, I agree with you. And my experience with this is that probably 4 out of 5 people want to stick and bury their head in the sand like an ostrich to pretend away the thinking about these things, because it's uncomfortable, right? And we don't have, my attitude is suck it up, buttercup. You've got to go and deal with this shit. Deal with it now. It's better than dealing with it when it's too late, because when it's too late, they'll get you. And this is where it gets really scary, and most people don't realize it. I talk to a lot of people on my channel about early retirement, the whole concept of retirement. I hate the word retirement. I think if you're doing what you love, you should never stop doing it. You might want to scale it back. You might want to change the way you do it, but you don't ever want to exit what you love, because if you do that, you've given up. That is probably going to be your demise. But these people out there fixated with this idea, like, I hate my job, I just want to get out of it, I'm going to retire early, and I need $1 million because I can live by drawing down on the interest of that for the rest of my life. Bullshit. Because here's the problem. That last couple of years, if you're stuck in a nursing home, I did a study here in Arizona where we both reside right now. And in Arizona, for a private nursing home, in that you get a private room, because after all, let's face it, you want your own room, right?
Yeah.
Okay. For a private room, the pricing in Arizona per month is a minimum $4,900 US to a maximum $19,000 US per month per room. So extrapolate that out. Let's say that you can exist in that world for a year or two. That's $250,000 worst case scenario per year. So if that's what we're looking at down the line, how do people afford that when all they did was they saved up $1 million and thought they could retire early on it? Well, they can't.